So in the various secession scenarios that you've kind of played out, are they all violent?
No. Well, I don't think...
What does a non-violent scenario look like?
So I think there would be perhaps violence at the fringes, but I don't expect that there would be, and I do not draw out in the book that we would ever have another civil war.
Okay.
And the reasons for that are multiple. One is, I think we hate each other too much in a weird way. In other words, if California said bye,
right,
a lot of people outside of California would say bye.
Right.
They wouldn't want to send their sons and daughters to die to keep California.
Right.
They would want it gone. So the actual working title of the book before the publisher came up with The Better Divided We Fall was The Great American Divorce.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, and the analogy that I was drawing sort of as I was walking through the book was, we're at the stage where like the parents aren't sleeping in the same bedroom anymore, and they're really growing in their distaste for each other, but there's so many things that keep them together. That's kind of where we are. And the scenarios I paint in the book are not about civil war at all. They're about people leaving and then the national government letting them leave. And another reason why I don't expect civil war is, look, it would just be too horrifying. It would be too horrifying. I still have this view, and of course, I could, I look back on this podcast one day and say, wow, I was way too optimistic about the future. But I still have this view that we wouldn't go there, because the weapons that we have at our disposal, you just can't even imagine what the world would be like if they were turned on each other.
Right.
So I think the animosity is much more towards a divorce style. And look, I mean, we've had close allies that have had votes in the last, in my adult lifetime. I mean, most recently, Great Britain had a vote where if Scotland had voted to leave, they were going to let Scotland leave.
Right.
Canada has had votes where if Quebec voted to leave, likely they would have let Quebec leave. So that's the kind of scenario that I imagine.
Well, what's wrong with that? I mean, I guess I'm wondering, would, in the kind of divorce metaphor, maybe would it be better if mom and dad lived separately? Would the kids be happier, right? So what's the argument for, no, even though we hate each other so much, we really need to stay unified?
Yeah. So it's so funny. When I wrote the book, I was really nervous about the subtitle. So The Divided We Fall, everybody knows we're divided, right?
Right.
Those are famous words. And then America's secession threat, the S word, secession. Like, really? Aren't you being alarmist, David? I mean, do we need more of that? And the funny thing is, as soon as I published the book, and this was before January 6th and before the contested election, the number one question I got was, why not? Why not just go our separate ways? And it was from Red America. It was from Blue America. I mean, the most recent polling shows that 52% of Trump voters are open to splitting apart the nation. 40% of Biden voters, that's a lot of people. And so the answer I give is really twofold. One is, look, as a matter of historical, sort of as if you just look through the great sweep of history, the principles. Now, I know American history has lots of problems. And when America was founded, it was founded in the midst of lots of problems, most notably in slavery. But the principles articulated in the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights are good. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men, we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That is good and true. Those words are good and true. The Bill of Rights is this fantastic articulation of human rights that is good and true. And what's happened over the course of American history is those good and true principles of the founding have been in tension with the injustice of the time, and over time have steadily prevailed. I mean, sometimes too slowly, often too slowly, sometimes violently, but over time, these really good principles of equality under the law, due process, free speech, free exercise of religion, as civilizational values have prevailed. And if you blow up this country, whether literally or politically, what values will prevail then? And if you assume that they're going to be just as good values or better values, you don't know much about how history can unwind in catastrophic and unpredictable ways. Here's what we know. The fundamental social compact in the United States of America is good. The Bill of Rights, that's one of the most powerful declarations of human dignity in world history, is our Bill of Rights. So to throw all that away because of this burst of animosity that we have as a people is absurd. And then the other thing is, just as a pragmatic, practical matter, you have no idea how much not only would that disrupt your life, the lives of everybody around you, disrupt the world, and throw the world into a degree of chaos where in the book I predict it would end in very violent ways. Because without that sort of American strength that secures the Western alliance, that secures our alliances in the Pacific, without that American strength, the old maladies of history would come back fast. And so we don't really realize the extent to which our current structure and the current order of the world is so heavily dependent. So many things that we take for granted, like almost 80 years without a world war. Yeah. So many things we take for granted are because of this united, very powerful nation that is the United States of America.